William Hill sponsors Seconds Out.
Radio Rahim in New York City with Callum Smith. You know, I used to make a big deal of talking to you when you were in the States, but now it just seems like commonplace.
We spend a lot of time together here, don't we? It's been a whirlwind the last few weeks. We've been everywhere. Yeah, we had Philadelphia with Katie Taylor a while back. Then we had the big one with Canelo and Jacobs in Vegas. I was down in Anthony's training camp in Miami. Went to, obviously, the Deontay fight. So yeah, it's busy, and back here again for another huge week in New York, and our biggest of the year.
Not only the biggest of the year, but maybe the biggest debut in boxing in quite some time, being that we're not talking a pro debut, obviously, but for Joshua to be fighting, not just in America, but in New York, not just in New York, but at Madison Square Garden, is such a huge deal for boxing itself. But how big is it overseas in England? How is it reverberating there with the fans?
Well, it's a huge thing, the fact that Anthony Joshua has taken care of business in Britain for such a long time. You know, the huge crowds at Wembley and at the Millennium Stadium, the 80, 90,000, huge, unprecedented crowds. Although Carl Froch will be upset with me about that. But he started the ball rolling, didn't he? But yeah, but AJ has thrilled us there. And I think this is the right step now to the global market. We're better than New York, we're better than Madison Square Garden. Reminds me of when we were here back in 1997 for a certain Prince Nassim Hamid who fought Kevin Kelly, and Kevin Kelly had come to England, and he said, I'm going to smoke your boots, and now said, I'm going to knock you out, and you're going to get a new job putting all my posters up in New York. And it was great, and the Times Square was full of Hamid posters, and we had a great couple of weeks here with the Prince, and a fantastic fight at the Garden. Reminds me a little bit of that, but of course this is the heavyweights and the era of Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder, and Tyson Fury, Dillian White as well, and many others coming through. It's a massive time for boxing. Boxing's going through the roof. The momentum is great. Just look at the stack card with Katie Taylor going for her undisputed title, and Callum Smith, the world's leading super middleweight on, and plenty of other brilliant talent on the bill. So it's a fantastic one, and I think this is a chance for AJ to make a big statement in New York. I've always said I think he's got the personality, the character, and obviously the talent in the ring to go down an absolute storm, go down brilliantly in America. And I think you guys are really going to take to him. So this is the perfect chance to get it started.
You know, for the past several years, I've been over in Britain debating with Joshua himself, Eddie Hearn all the time, sometimes you, as to whether or not it was necessary for a guy who, like you said, was packing stadiums, selling out tickets in minutes of huge arenas, to come to this market, or if he could basically be a global star without leaving home. Well, I guess we've answered that question, or at least that question begs an answer all of a sudden. What's changed between now and, say, 3 years ago, when most of the people over there didn't rate a debut in America as something that was necessary?
Well, I think with Anthony Joshua, you've seen he's won Olympic gold in 2012. Now he's cleaning up all the honours lists as well, the MBE, the OBE. He's an absolute superstar in Britain. One of our top sporting talents in any code. So yeah, look, the old saying, you've got to still make it in America, especially in boxing. And for years the Brits came over and tried, and then of course Frank Bruno, and then Lennox Lewis, and Lewis was brilliant, unified the heavyweight division. He had that controversial draw here in the Garden, and then the rematch in Vegas where he beat Evander Holyfield and became the unified champion. And so, that was amazing for Lennox Lewis, and then I think that sort of set the ball rolling for the likes of your Ricky Hattons to come over, your Joe Calzaghes, your Carl Froches, so many others who've hit America. But we are waiting for the heavyweights. David Haye, didn't quite make it over here. He did a lot in Europe as a heavyweight, but of course he was a great cruiserweight too. But AJ, super heavyweight Olympic champion, IBF heavyweight champion so quickly in his professional career. So many belts he's got, and these unifications that he's taken care of. The Joseph Parker one in getting that WBO title early last year, the defense against Povetkin. This feels the right time to come here. And of course, if you can get rid of Andy Ruiz, just sort of opponent who no one quite knows what to make of. He's got very fast hands, he's aggressive, he comes forward, he's got nothing to lose. What an opportunity for him in a sport littered with upsets, especially at heavyweight. But should he come through AJ, which obviously we expect him to, then it goes to when is he going to fight Deontay Wilder or Tyson Fury, because that's what the fans want to see. And I spent time with Deontay recently, I spent time with Anthony. I believe, honestly, Rahim, in my heart of hearts, they both want this fight. And I think if you put them in a room and told them you can't come out until the fight's made, maybe something can happen. Maybe they can decide and come out and tell everybody else. Because
if you put them in a room, put the cameras on, because I think the fight will happen before they come out.
You know what? I think. Do you know what? I'm not sure. I think they both want this fight. I think they both know how huge it is. And they're cooking it, aren't they? And they if they can come out and say, right, we're doing 3 fights or we're doing 2 fights, and this is how it's going to work, and we're going to have one in Vegas and one in London. Of course, look, they've got terrific advisors around them, Shelley Finkel and Al Heyman and Jay Diaz and the whole crew around Deontay Wilder, who have done brilliantly with him. You've got Freddie Cunningham and Eddie Hearn and everyone around Anthony that want the best for him. So it is difficult. Obviously, big fights are hard to make, but I was buoyed by the fact that Deontay said he doesn't want a Lewis Bowe situation. He doesn't want this not to happen. And in my heart of hearts, I think it will happen. I'm not sure it will happen this year, but I think it will happen.
Has Wilder moved the needle? Not just, the tremendous knockout just a week ago got everybody's attention. He made Dominic Breazeale look like an easy fight, but we know, based on his performance with Joshua and his career, this guy's no easy win. He's not a one knockout kind of lay down Sally. So have that that feather in his cap and so many knockouts in a row, from where these negotiations started, how significantly has Joshua moved the needle? Not Joshua, but Wilder moved the needle in his favor to strengthen his position. And does that make the fight easier or more difficult to make?
I said to Deontay just before the fight, I said, you haven't had the best 2018, have you? It's not been fantastic because, yes, you had that thriller against Luis Ortiz, but he was a couple of punches away from messing that up. And then he had the fight with Tyson Fury, and okay, the miraculous recovery in the 12th round, but that aside, and maybe Deontay Wilder almost could have won by knockout, and maybe should have done by the way he got up from that. But Tyson Fury won the fight, in my opinion and in most people's opinion. So it wasn't a great year for him. And he told us he was going to make a statement. We asked if it would be a shootout, and he said it would be a blowout. That's exactly what happened. He wanted it badly, and he's got the power to do this. He's got more power than anyone out there. Yes, he's occasionally ungainly, he's awkward, and he can be outboxed, as we saw with Tyson Fury, but that power puts guys out, puts them to sleep. And I think, he needed that statement, and I think it does probably push slightly towards him. Not in terms of the fact Joshua's got more of a global appeal. Joshua's got more belts. He's still the man, but there's pressure on him now to deal with Andy Ruiz, not necessarily by spectacular one-round knockout. No one's going to sort of be matching them up like that, but certainly he's going to...
you know that they will.
Well, I think that, providing AJ goes in there and takes care of business, I think Ruiz is going to come in and he's going to make the fight, and I think that's going to give Anthony opportunities to possibly get an early knockout, but he's also going to have to take care because Ruiz has got quick hands. He will give it absolutely everything. He's got nothing to lose, and he's always been pretty sturdy too. So, if Joshua can't get rid of him the first few rounds, it then becomes interesting. I think it is probably a shorter fight, but I don't think it's a one-round fight. I think it's Ruiz is going to ask a few questions, and listen, he could give Joshua some very sticky moments, but I expect Anthony to come through. I expect him to come through in style. And I think then the talk will all be about when this fight will happen. And, I think Deontay should come here, or Anthony needs to go to one of his fights. And I think we need to start doing that.
It's fairly interesting, your assessment of 2018 for Wilder, because on the one hand, the things that you say, they certainly are true, but those fights were exciting. There was a moment in both of them that is highlight worthy. And with Joshua having a 2018 himself, I'm not sure when I look at boxing highlights from 2018, I won't get more Wilder than Joshua. What does he have to do, or if anything, to match Wilder, at least in his development? I would say, let me put it to much more frankly, Wilder has broadened his global appeal, and this is, I think, Joshua's first opportunity to try to do that. Without a one-punch knockout, as you say, what does Joshua do to appeal to the American market, if not having an exciting 2018 himself, what kind of 2019 does he have to have?
Well, there's a few things to answer here. Firstly, I think Anthony is a much bigger star in Britain than Deontay is in America. He comes over here, and I think he's got the charisma and the personality. And, you know, if they get him out and about, which they are doing, from the New York Stock Exchange to the big magazines to the TV shows, I think everyone's going to love AJ. Everyone does back home. Why aren't the Americans? You know, Deontay Wilder, you know, I like him very much. I think he's a real character, but there is an alter ego. There is the Bronze Bomber. He does say things that go across the line, over the line, that people don't like. Yes, he gets attention, and rightly so. But I don't think that he's necessarily broadened his global appeal too much, Deontay Wilder. I think that I agree with you that they were very exciting. 2018 was a really exciting time for fight fans to watch Deontay Wilder. I think the Lewis Ortiz fight was one of the great heavyweight fights. You know, we had AJ and Klitschko, and then we had, you know, Wilder and Ortiz, you know, terrific heavyweight fights. And I think, again, I thought the Fury-Wilder fight was fascinating. And, of course, they had the drama of the last round as well. So I agree with you. But I'm saying that what Deontay and I were talking about was the fact that, you know, he could have lost one and should have lost the other one, and he got a win and a draw. So actually, it's the results there. He could have had 2 defeats last year. He didn't. He's still unbeaten, and he came back and he delivered what he needed to do. It was a massive statement, and that sort of, whatever it was, minute and a half is going to be shown around and around the world. And now, you're right, in the last couple of weeks, people are going to start taking notice, and they will, you know, obviously compare Joshua. But I don't think, if Joshua doesn't win in a round, he wins in 4 rounds. I don't think it makes too big a difference, to be honest.
Well,
if Andy Ruiz wins, it makes a massive difference, doesn't it? Because, you know, we're looking at AJ and Wilder. We're looking at Wilder and Fury, whatever. Wilder's done his bit. Joshua's got to do his bit now. Let's not dismiss Andy Ruiz here, okay? This guy is in many ways a better opponent than Jarrell Miller. He's fought for a world title. He's only lost controversially in New Zealand, so very, very narrowly. You know, he's got a good chin. He's got good hands. He's got a big heart. Yeah, he doesn't look the best, but he can fight. So he's still got to go in and do it, Joshua. And for Andy Ruiz Jr., he's got nothing to lose. And if Ruiz Jr. comes in and springs a massive surprise, we've seen it before in the heavyweight division, time and again, especially when big plans are laid out carefully on the table.
You know, when you say a draw he should have lost and a fight he could have lost, it makes me think of Canelo.
Look, Wilder's got you know, superstar qualities. Of course he does. You know, he's so exciting to watch, and he's a great talker. Canelo does as well. It doesn't matter. I always say it doesn't matter a loss in this game, you know, but they're all still unbeaten. Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder, and Anthony Joshua. Somehow they're all still unbeaten. Anthony nearly lost to Vladimir Klitschko and pulled that one around and did. Shaken by Dillian White, got through. So he's preserved his unbeaten record. Even he had a couple of dodgy rounds against Alexander Povetkin, but like the champion he is, came through that. He's improving with every fight, Joshua. Wilder, he wants to keep that unbeaten record, and Tyson Fury, I'm sure, will do in mid-June. So what we want, Rahim, is we want a merry-go-round, don't we? We want 1, 2, 3 fights with any of them. Take your pick. Throw Dillian White into the mix, maybe Alexander Usyk and a couple of others.
Sure.
It's great times for the heavyweights, so let's get the business taken care of in the next couple of weeks, and then see where we are.
It's not far off, as I was saying, with the middleweight situation. And now the only thing that the heavyweights don't have is an opportunity to go up in weight and chase other belts.
If Wilder had taken the DAZN deal, then that would have happened as well. That would have happened like the middleweights under DAZN now. You know, with Danny Jacobs and Canelo and Golovkin. Listen, if he'd gone with that DAZN offer, then the AJ Wilder fight would definitely have happened. But he hasn't. He stayed with his team. He stayed with Al Heyman. He stayed with his guys. He's been with Jay Diaz since he was a baby almost. You know, since certainly he was a baby in boxing. That's loyalty, and that's great. And I've got a lot of respect for that. Shelley Finkel as well. Shelley was with him from the amateurs, and he's always believed that Deontay Wilder's the man, and he still does. So he's got that team around him. Likewise, Anthony's got Eddie and Freddie. They've both got great teams around them. It's now time for maybe the teams just to step aside and the fighters to try and drive this through.
Well, a fight, like I'm saying, may be easier made, and a guy who's on this card on June 1st is Callum Smith. And I'm thinking about Canelo now in September, and the fact that he's got title to defend at 68. I know Callum wants that fight at 68. He's had a tremendous 2018. Do you think that's a fight that's possible to be made, first of all? And if it were to be made, what are Callum's chances?
Callum Smith's a great fighter. #1 super middleweight in the world, proved that by winning the Super Series and the boxing series, sorry. And he's a great, we've always thought it, a great fighter, Callum. He's a huge super middleweight. He's got a beautiful jab. He's so dedicated, such a nice guy. But the way he dismantled George Groves was fantastic. We want to see him in the big fights, whether that's with Chris Eubank Jr. We know now, obviously, George Groves and James DeGale have retired. That's tough for Callum, but Canelo or Golovkin would be amazing. I don't know. Look, Canelo told us before the Danny Jacobs fight that he wanted to win all the belts. That was what his goal was. So Demetrius Andrade obviously has the WBO title, and I think that at middleweight that's the fight that probably will attract him most. There's Billy Joe Saunders now up at super middleweight. So there's, he's a two-weight champion and a great fighter. So there's lots out there for Callum. I really want to. I'm a big Liverpool fan, Rahim. I really want to see him fight at Anfield. I think that'll be amazing, and hopefully one day that will happen for Callum Smith. But yeah, he's got a great platform here. He's got a great stage on a fantastic night, and if he can get through and defend his title successfully, I'd like to see him fight more regularly. Get him out every 2 or 3 months. He's always in the gym, Callum. He's a workaholic. No reason why that can't happen. But I'd love to see him fight Canelo, whether it's here or in Britain.
And lastly, Triple G is going to be just 7 days after Joshua, same place. I would say maybe the stakes are as high, but for very different reasons. It's a debut of sorts for him as well. He's got a new trainer. That always begs questions when a fighter's at this stage of his career. What do you make of his decision with Steve Rolls, who the Brits know well? And what do you think Triple G's got left with or without Abel Sanchez?
Yeah, probably right fight at the right time for Triple G. He needs to get sort of back on the bike. He's as you said, he's got a new trainer. Abel Sanchez has been with him for so long, but I like Jonathan Banks. Jonathan Banks is cool, he's calm, he comes from the Emmanuel Stewart training base, and I've known Jonathan a long time. Obviously he's worked very closely with the Klitschkos and Dillian White and others. He's a very good trainer, and he's a good man to have in your corner. I don't think he'll do a lot with Golovkin. Golovkin is who he is, and Abel did a brilliant job with Gennady. And the question is, what has Gennady got left? And DAZN will be hoping a huge amount, because it's another massive deal that he signed. And I believe that there's huge fights out there. Obviously, another fight with Canelo and all the other guys we mentioned. So very much looking forward to seeing Golovkin back in New York in a almost 10, 12 days time. And yeah, he's a superstar, isn't he? And we need that in boxing. But the fact that they're all getting together, they're all coming under sort of one banner and one promoter, or certainly promoters that are working with each other, is really good.
With Matchroom putting so much content on DAZN and so many platforms for fighters, it seems like there's 2 or 3 fights every Saturday now. I remember when it used to be an anomaly to have 2 on one Saturday. Now you can't even ever get home.
I don't know how much time Eddie spends in Essex these days, but or with Mrs. Hearn and the kids. But I think they're out here this week, so it's difficult, isn't it? He's got shows here, there, and everywhere. We've got to make sure that the British shows are booming, and we had a fantastic one last week with Deontay. We were here with Deontay, back home with Josh Taylor becoming world champion. That was a brilliant show up in Glasgow with Inouye on as well, who's an absolute
How do you guys decide
beast.
Which fights that Sky Sports wants to pick up? How do you decide of all these events, which ones the British fans most want to see?
We've got an exclusive deal with Matchroom, so it's up to to what Eddie puts on, and obviously we had a chance to put the World Super Series on. I've been annoying Eddie or nagging Eddie and my bosses at Sky for a long time about Josh Taylor. I really like him, I really rate him, and I really wanted a fighter back from Scotland, because we haven't been there for a while, and we had great times with the likes of Scott Harrison and before him Gary Jacobs and Alex Arthur, Ricky Burns. It's always been a great boxing hotbed, Scotland. So I was very excited about Josh Taylor, a chance of working with Josh again. I hope we do the final, because I think he's another one to get very excited about. New world champion, lovely guy, southpaw, always in good fights. I really like Josh. So yeah, we've got big shows back home. We've got another good Next Gen coming up in June, and we've got a big show again in the early July, and then Dillian White obviously on Box Office on July the 20th. So much to look forward to, but it's also good that we're taking the best of the American shows as well. So the schedule's packed.
Devin Haney was probably I would say, the story of 2019 so far, in that he was elevated to a main event status just last Saturday. A lot of people saw him for the very first time, and to talk about seizing the moment, putting on a hell of a performance, I don't think he could do much better than that. How did you rate it, and what do you think was the reception from British fans? Is he on the radar now?
I've got to admit, it's the first one of our shows I haven't watched live this year because I was at Carl Frocci's wedding in Italy, so I didn't see it live, but I have watched it back. I watched it back yesterday, and I think that Devin Haney is a phenomenal fighter. I'll go on record here. I think he's going to be I really do. I think he's an excellent addition to Eddie Hearn's stable. I really do. There's so much good talent out there that to pick from. You know, Oscar De La Hoya's got so many, hasn't he? Ryan Garcia being one, and he's, you know, there's many prospects to choose from. Joshua Buatsi, we love. Josh Kelly back home, but I really think that Devin Haney is absolutely fantastic. I first met him years and years ago when he was with Floyd. Floyd was raving about him for a long time. I think Eddie has pulled a great one getting Devin Haney under the books, and it was a terrific performance. He stepped up, as you said. Alexander Usyk's misfortune was Devin Haney's gain, and I like to see him fight regularly. I like to see him out there. I think the knockout as well, because, you know, one thing you have been saying about Devin Haney, people are saying is, has he got the power? You know, Floyd Mayweather proved as he went up through the weights, it's not all about power, it's about skill and speed. And listen, I think Devin Haney is a really hot, more than a prospect, and you know, he needed that knockout win on Saturday night, and I think that's great. So I'm very excited about him.
Well, we could go on for another hour. That's the beauty of boxing right now in this era. We could literally continue to talk until the sun goes down and comes up again and not get to it all. So we'll just chop it up. Next time, we'll get to more of it.
I've only just got off the plane, Rahim, so it's straight to you see?
Yeah.
You've got that aura about you that sort of drags you straight in. I haven't even had a sort of, a glass of water or anything. I'm straight off the plane, I'm straight to you.
Adam, if it makes you
Can
feel...
I just go and get a fruit juice or something?
You can. I came straight here from the airport. You know why? Because they told me you'd be here, and the magnetism is mutual. It's a pleasure to talk to you always,
nice
sir.
to talk to you.
Thank you for your analysis. Radio Rahim with Adam Smith.
William Hill sponsors Seconds Out.